Good evening. I suppose you should say good day as well. Please take your seats. Welcome to everybody who is here in the Senate room in Solomon Mashlangu House at the University of Witwatersrand at Wits, and of course all of those who are also joining you online. My name is Ian Jandrell. I'm a Deputy Vice Chancellor at this university, and apart from being a recovering electrical engineer and Dean of a faculty, I also have the absolute privilege of having a close interaction with the Faculty of Health Sciences. So I'm really personally very happy to be here. I also want to say that I think it's wonderful to see so many people here in front of us in this sort of three-dimensional environment for the inaugural lecture of Professor Benita Olivier. I think it's so important also to recognize that there are folk joining us online from all around the world, but to actually be able to be here with each other after this pandemic, I think is absolutely special. It's special to have loved ones, friends, and colleagues with you in the same room. I think that's so nice. Folk, my task is a very simple one. It's simply to welcome all of you here, to thank you for being here, and then also to introduce to you the folk who walked in the academic procession. Of course, the head of the school, Professor Helen Mieswa, the School of Therapeutic Sciences, and I'll introduce her in a moment. Professor Benita Olivier, our inaugurating professor. And then if you look very carefully, you would have seen the individual who is going to give the vote of thanks, Professor Amy Stewart. But actually, she's joining us online, so you'll meet her later on as well. But all I would like to say is it's a pleasure to be at inaugural lectures. It's that moment when folks stand up in front of their friends and their colleagues, they profess, and they show us what it is that they profess. And I don't want to preempt anything, but just looking at the title tonight already makes me particularly interested. And as an electrical engineer, I always know that if the inaugurating lecturer speaks slowly and loudly, I'll probably learn something. So without any further ado, I'd like to introduce the head of school, Professor Helen Mieswa, to introduce our inaugurating professor. Helen.
Good evening, everybody. And thank you, Prof. Jandrell, for such a wonderful welcome to everybody. I have the pleasure of introducing a colleague, and I think when I haven't been naughty, she can call me a friend. Benita Olivier is a personal professor, and I want to add one of the youngest in the faculty in musculoskeletal physiotherapy and in the physiotherapy department of the University of the Witwatersrand in the School of Therapeutic Sciences. She's also a director of the Wits Cricket Research Hub of Science, Medicine and Rehabilitation. Her research focuses on reducing sports injuries with a particular interest in human movement analysis. I want to tell you that in 2013, Benita came into my office and asked if she could go and do another master's. And I looked at her and I thought, what drive? Who wants such punishment after a PhD that she completed in 2013 in cricket fast bowling injury prevention? And then in 2019, just 5 years, she comes along and asks to do this master's with the University of Dundee. And she did it. I said to her, you do it, but we're not going to give you too much leeway because we've already sponsored you for one master's. But she did it, and she didn't just do it and pass it. She passed it with distinction. This is Benita for you. Her contribution to scholarship and academic citizenship is visible in many spheres, including her publication record and her postgraduate supervision record, where she stands out and has a high number of publications. Benita is also the founder of the Research Masterminds. And if you haven't been on her website, please go, especially if you want to learn something about research and be successful in your research. The Research Masterminds Success Academy, and it's a membership that promotes and supports postgraduate students to achieve their goals. Benita, we are looking forward to hearing everything you have to say. And as Prof. General said, that title certainly tickled my interest. And I look forward to listening to what you have to say. Please come forward.
I want to just add that Prof. Maizwa herself completed 2 master's degrees. So firstly, I'll maybe start with just a brief thanks for those in the room. Thank you for all the hugs. Please go and sanitize when you get home. I did hug quite a few people tonight. And everyone online, thank you for also joining in from wherever you are in the world. So it is customary for these inaugural lecturers to start on the day of their birth and then to go through all the way to the date of the inaugural. And that's exactly what I'll do. But believe me, I'm going to definitely skip over a few important details. So I was born in 1981 in rural KwaZulu-Natal and living my first few years of life on a farm surrounded by sugarcane. And those were the years when apparently the keys of the bakkie lived inside the bakkie, a very safe stage of my life and in the world. We moved to Polokwane, where I completed my school career, and then I came to study in the big city of Pretoria. At that time, my biggest stress was the fact that there was on-ramps and off-ramps connecting the residential areas and the highways. And I promise you, there was no Google Maps. I was struggling to get my head around how these on-ramps and off-ramps work because we didn't have any of those in Polokwane. And that gave me also made me realize the importance of context, that I should never assume that anyone else have experienced the same as what I have. And I took that with me in my research career. Okay, so they did warn that at some stage the battery may not last of this little device. Here we are. Good. We'll try again. So this is what academics do. We put graphs together. And this is just to show you that I aspire, and I've always aspired. My 26th year of life was quite a good year for me, and I decided to remain 26 for the rest of my life. But things changed in 2011, 2010, I started a PhD. And then 2011, we decided to start a family because I didn't have enough to do while doing a PhD. And I had a baby boy in 2011. So those little hearts depict a baby boy born every time I do a master's or a PhD. And you can see my age skyrocketed up above 60 off the chart in that time. And I even remember collecting data while being 7 months pregnant with the second one, driving back on my way from Joburg to Pretoria, where we live, and then I'll miss those off-ramps that I told you about earlier, time and time again, having to make a U-turn, pay toll fees at Stormville just to get back on my way, just because of pure tiredness. Then let's fast forward a bit to 22 January 2020. That's the just before the whole world was changed by the pandemic. And it was also the day that I was promoted to full professor. I remember sitting in the waiting room. There was a closed door with a panel of local and international committee members. They were reviewing my application, but they weren't only reviewing my application for promotion. They were reviewing me. They were discussing me and whether I'm good enough. And I could feel that while sitting outside that door. And while I was sitting there, somebody I know well passed by, and she asked me, she saw that I looked stressed, because I often do look stressed. I don't know, sometimes even when I don't feel stressed, people will tell me, why do you look so stressed? But I came to peace with that. That's perfectly fine. If you want to, if that's on your heart tonight to ask me that, that's perfectly fine. And she said, don't worry, if they call you in, they're going to ask you a few questions. one of them will be, what impact have you made in your research? And I thought, what impact have I made? Here I am sitting on my way to be promoted to full professor, having passed all the various stages of reviews for this application. And I'm wondering, what impact have I made with my research? And that is imposter syndrome to the max. And it's something that we all know exists in academics and even in other professions as well. And there I realized that we have to believe in ourselves. Even if one has arrived, we have to remain humble, but we also have to realize what we have achieved, and something that is very, very difficult to do. And that's also where I lean a lot on the support that I receive from my network. Sorry. So just a bit more about myself. These are a few habits I have. I do get up at 4:20 in the mornings, but it also means that I go to bed at 7:20 at night, which means that anytime after 7, you will see me either disappear or I'll completely lose my personality. For that reason, I'm struggling to work in the evenings, but I am very good in the mornings. I do procrastinate. I don't want to say it too loud, but procrastination but no more than 2 days a week, because then the deadlines start to pile up. I love creating for researchmasterminds.com. It feels like a way of giving back, whether we make a video or write a blog post. I try and eat a carrot and an apple every day. That's just a bit useless information. I also do exercise. And because I don't drink coffee, I try to have a whiskey at least twice a week. And this is my research area. I'm focusing a lot on the research in cricket. But I also do research in general musculoskeletal and sports. Now, the presentation and the focus tonight will more be on the cricket research that we've done, although we've done research in other areas as well, and specifically because I'm the director of this WITS Cricket Research Hub. And I'm going to just tell you a bit more, and we're going to just zoom into one area of cricket research, because we have done a lot of research in cricket, and there's definitely not time for me to go through all the research that we've done. And as they say, less is more, and I really want you to take away something from this presentation. So if you're interested in any of the other papers that we've published, feel free to come and talk to me. I can send you a lovely OneDrive link, and you can have all of them to read through in your spare time. Now, we will start with where cricket research come from. And like my father always say, if we want to know in which direction we go, we should find out, where are you now, where do you come from, and where are you going? And that's the easy way to do strategic planning. And that's his summary of the perfect strategic plan. So the very first paper in cricket injury was published not by me, by David Pye in 1965. And with this slide, I really want to thank all the researchers before me, because a foundation was laid by many researchers before me, and we are building on that foundation, and we should always keep recognizing them. Now, here are some of the research that we've done. Most of it was into factors associated with cricket injury, and finding ways to try and prevent or reduce injury risk. These are many of the papers that we've published. But for tonight, we're going to zoom into a very specific area where we're laying a foundation for future research to be done. And that's in the area of the asymmetry in internal oblique muscle thickness. It's not the key to a cricket fast bowler success. And the reason why I want to give you a bit of insight into this topic is because it's quite novel. It has been researched in other sports, but the fast bowling action is really a unique action, and we really need context-specific research for this area. So we know that the fast bowling action is a repetitive action. One arm extends above the head. The trunk goes into extension, flexion, lateral flexion, rotation. So it's an asymmetrical action. And that asymmetrical action happens while there's huge loads of ground reaction forces going through the body. And that predisposes the bowler to injury while they are attempting to have high ball release speeds. Now, I always tell Hansi, my husband, He's a cricket coach that I feel that they should ban the round arm action and bring back the underarm action because I feel it's safer for our bowlers. And then he just very gently reminds me that we need some action in cricket, and nobody will watch the game if it's done that way, and that game will die. And then I go back into my injury prevention closet and I try and go and find other solutions to keep our fast bowlers injury-free. So what has been done in terms of the predictors of ball release speed and accuracy? So there's a lot of research out there on the anthropometrics, that's the body dimensions, the bowling biomechanics, that's predicting ball release speed, run-up velocity, lower body strength, and trunk muscle stability. But no one has looked at the trunk abdominal muscle thickness, or what, as we use the term, morphometry. And that's something that we wanted to zoom into a bit more. So if you wonder what this internal oblique muscle looks like, it's the muscle on the sides of the bowler. So when a right arm bowler bowls, the left side internal oblique contracts quite strongly. And because of that repetitive contraction, that left side muscle gets very thick. And I'll tell you a bit more about it just now. So the first thing that we wanted to find out was that and what we did prove was that injury-free fast bowlers showed that the non-dominant muscle, that internal oblique muscle, was much thicker than on the dominant side. And to do this, we've done a study on club-level cricket fast bowlers. We did ultrasound of the abdominal muscles, and we found that this was indeed the case. They were all injury-free, and we found that the one side was thicker than the other side. And this was subsequently, or before, afterwards, also confirmed by a few other researchers. Then we wanted to know that these bowlers that are injury-free at the time of testing, what happens to them? So at the time of testing, they remain injury-free, but then they go on and they play for an entire season. Some sustain an injury and others don't. And we wanted to look at the role of that muscle in this case. And we went on, as researchers do, we keep ourselves busy, and we developed another study, which we've done.
We included 28 injury-free.
We included 28 injury-free fast bowlers at the start of the cricket season, and we looked at their abdominal muscle thickness. And we found that the thickness of this non-dominant internal oblique at rest was greater than the dominant side in those who remained injury-free. But it was not the case for those who sustained injuries. In other words, those bowlers who went on to sustain an injury had very much a symmetrical thickness of the two muscles on each side, which gave us the clue that maybe this muscle, the asymmetry of this muscle, are keeping us, our bowlers, safe, rather than what we previously thought, where we thought that asymmetry is bad and everything needs to be strengthened symmetrically. So now we know that the internal oblique muscle may be protective. And then there's also other research that has been done that looked at bowlers with low back pain at the time. And where we looked at fast bowlers who had no low back pain, but they went on to sustain an injury. This next study looked at bowlers who had low back pain and those who didn't. And a very similar finding was found where the symmetry was associated with the low back pain. And again, making us question the fact that this asymmetry, isn't it protective of these fast bowlers? But there was a gap. In other words, we have focused on injury the whole time. But what about performance? So all the relationships that we've tested up to now was all about what is the link to injury. But we know the overall aim of a fast bowler is to perform. The remaining injury-free is just a tool for them to perform at their best. And us as healthcare professionals should remember that the major focus is performance, and we should keep bowlers injury-free for them to perform, not keep them injury-free just for the sake of keeping them injury-free. So we went on and we decided to look at this side-to-side thickness difference. What is the relationship between the thickness, asymmetry in the thickness and performance? And for this, we've done another study. And our finding was very interesting. And the reason why I'm saying it's interesting is that if you have a finding that keeps Ebola injury-free or that promotes injury or reduces injury risk, but it reduces performance at the same time, compliance with that factor is very difficult to do because no bowler will go on and say, yes, perfect, come and change my action, strengthen me up so that I bowl slower, less accurate and less consistent. But what we did find is, although there's quite a link between this asymmetry and being injury-free, there was the side-to-side difference in internal oblique was not associated with ball release speed or accuracy, which is very positive because that means we are free to go and tamper with something that's going to reduce injury, but it's not going to affect performance. One of the things that I just want to bring under your attention, we only did observational studies, so we can't look at the cause effect. It's all speculation, and these type of results should be taken into a proper longitudinal or randomized control trial to see what the effects are longitudinally. So in conclusion, the injury-free fast bowlers present with a thicker internal oblique on the non-dominant side. This asymmetrical internal oblique may be protective against injury. That's our speculation. And side-to-side differences in internal oblique is not related to ball release speed or accuracy. Now you may wonder, what am I going to do with the rest of the 24 years before retirement? There's quite a few plans to do. We are, for this specific research topic, intervention studies is much needed. So definitely there's multiple topics for masters and PhDs within this area. Also, just locking these research up into into journals and Congress presentations, it needs to be implemented in some way as soon as we have enough evidence. And of course, we will continue our biomechanics research together with our Cricket South Africa team to see how many fast bowlers we can help in the future to reduce their injury risk while enhancing their performance. I just want to say thank you to all the co-authors of these various studies. I didn't mention all the co-authors and all the collaborators of all the papers that we've published. It's just the ones that I referred to and on the papers that we've published. But now it wouldn't have been fair to just stop the evening right there, because I was sitting here and I was enjoying standing here and I was enjoying the topic and I'm getting more and more excited. But not all of you are necessarily into cricket research. And I would like to thank you for listening to me and really even nodding your head and seeming to be interested. I think it's very valuable that you've done that. Thank you. But this is me giving back to you. I've been in the academia for 14 years and I've learned quite a few things. And there's a lot of my mentors here who are much more experienced than I am. And I've learned a lot from them as well. But this is my chance to give back to anyone who's willing to listen. And these are the 7 principles to consider while navigating the academic journey. I haven't read it in a blog post, haven't seen it on a YouTube video. It's things that I've experienced in my own life. So it comes from the heart. The academic journey can also be replaced with the life's journey. So here goes. So the first thing and the very first principle is to create impact. We can't just go on to just publish because of doing research, just because of we feel that we need to do some research. And because we want to play the numbers game and get to 87 publications so that we can apply for full professor. We have to move away from that publish to perish, and we have to move towards impact. So find ways to create impact in your work. I even want to go so far as to say that a research project shouldn't be called a research project. It should be called an impact initiative so that the focus is on impact and the publication comes afterwards. But how do we create impact? I think there should be a space in everyone's CV to list these impact initiatives. Make sure that you convey your findings to the research, to the stakeholders, whoever participated in your study. Write a blog post, make a YouTube video, disseminate those results in the world out there. Create a flyer with your information and send it out there. Create an injury program and send the information out there. So there's many ways to create impact and to really get the word of your research out there. And then the second principle is around marginal gains persistently leads to high impact consistently. In 2020, when everything happened at the same time, and I know the lockdown affected all of us in different ways. For us in academia, we all of a sudden we worked from home, yes, but we worked all the time. It felt like weekends, public holidays, all of it was just working hours, trying to convert everything that we've done face-to-face all of a sudden to online platforms, recreating systems to match an online world. And in that time, I felt a bit overwhelmed, and I created this quote and I wrote it onto a sticky note just to remind myself that every day we do something towards achieving a bigger goal. We are working towards the goal, because many days I would go through an entire 12 or 14-hour day and it will feel like I haven't done anything, but actually we've done a lot. So we have to recognize that every little chipping away brings you closer to a bigger goal. Then acknowledge your excuses and then chuck them. Now, I know we all have excuses, and Vusi Tembekwayo says it so nicely that we all have excuses, but none of those serve our goals. And even in my case, I have a whole list of excuses, and I promise you I'm going to mention a few, but I can even come up with more. My husband's a cricket coach, and he's often after hours away from home, although he's trying to be with us as much as he can. English is my second language. I'm living 68 kilometers from campus. I had 2 small kids while I was doing a PhD. I had a full-time workload, not a sabbatical. You know, it sounds like complaining, but those are excuses. We all have excuses when we are doing anything. And even for today, you can think of so many excuses, but let's acknowledge those excuses. So for me, I need to say that, Benita, yes, you have those excuses. There are many things counting against you, but what are the things that's counting for you? Chuck the excuses and just find the ways find the things and optimize them, the things that serve your goals. So there will always be things that we can improve. Others we need to accept. In my case, I couldn't put my 2- and 4-year-old boys at the time in boarding school. That wasn't an option, although the thought certainly crossed my mind a few times. I had to find ways to ensure I achieve my goals. So sometimes the solution requires money, maybe somebody to cook for you so that you don't, at least that is off your plate. But other times it just requires innovation. And that innovation and solution finding can only happen once you have put the excuses behind you. And then acknowledge your ecosystem. We definitely don't live alone. We don't live in silos. Our paths are shaped by everyone around us, and that we have to realize. So firstly, I have to say thank you to Hansi, my husband, who in between his own dreams and ambitions, always find time to support my goals 100%. And to the 3 beautiful boys sitting at the back, soos Jason altyd sê, mama, hoekom is mama se studeerkamer deur toe? Mama vat so lank om uit te kom. I will always open the study room again, even if it's closed for quite a few hours, and I will come out and I will be with you again. And Eva, also sitting at the back, maybe she took the little one out. She always listens to my stories. She always is so calm. You know, when I get upset, she said, no, don't worry about these people. Just watch the movie. Just sit back and watch the movie. I'm talking about the scenario that's playing in front of whatever upsets me. And the physiotherapy department, who I'm part of, it is really like getting onto a fast-moving train. You can only achieve when you have got onto that train, because the culture is really strong and it's a driven culture. So I'm very appreciative of all my colleagues. And I wish I could thank everyone tonight, everyone in my ecosystem, because a thank you is what you deserve. So to all my friends and family and colleagues, students, collaborators and funders, my success is your success, but also remember your success is my success. So you influence my direction in some way, and be it through formal rules and regulations that you've put in place or through informal corridor conversations. Paying it forward. Seeing that we're not alone in this ecosystem, we need to pay it forward. And how can we do that? Firstly, from a research perspective, sharing your data and sharing your work and the groundwork that you've done is the first place to start. From the Wits Cricket Research Hub perspective, we've started a data management and sharing guide where we collect the data, and we've put systems in place that allow us to share the data and reuse the data for future purposes. Also share your experiences. So whatever you've learned, some of us have gifts and talents, and we need to share it with others, especially if the other people don't have those same gifts and talents. One way that I have created a platform that allows me to share is when I created the Research Masterminds YouTube channel in 2017 and the blog in 2020. And it's really an outlet when I feel like it's time to give something of myself to the world out there. I create a video or I create a blog post. And I really urge all of you to find ways to pay it forward. We learn from others, and we need to find ways to pay it forward and get it back into the world out there. And this brings us to the next principle, failure. Now, all of us, we always see these brilliant CVs with a lot of accolades, but what about all the failures that took place on your way to get there and all the learning that took place? In academia, we are constantly faced with peer review. Every single thing that you do gets peer reviewed, and you repeatedly get told this is not good enough, or this is good enough, okay, through to the next level, or review or revise. And even one of the articles a mere 1 or 2 years ago got rejected 7 times from a journal before it got accepted. What's in my CV? Only the final citation. So nobody sees anything else. And as they say, see this failure as a stepping stone. So failure is a way for you to learn. So as soon as we fail, we should say, yes, this is another learning point. Let's see what we can get out of it. Let's make things better for the future and see how we can get better. And as they say, feedback is the breakfast of champions. So actually, we should actually look for opportunities to fail so that we can learn and get stronger. Now, I know it's much easier to say than to do, because even for me, when there's disappointment, it does take me an evening or two to get over it. But once you're over it, see what you can learn and move on. Then, keeping the balance. And this is where the most difficult part comes in. But what about we are happy with keeping the balance, even if it's only 50% of the time? Sometimes we need to work. Sometimes we are sitting in a parking lot on a Sunday to study for something or finish one last thing. But finding the balance and keeping the balance is something that we need to do, and we need to focus on that to try and get it right, even if it's only 50% of the time. Now, I'm definitely not a fan of, the parking lot example as a real life situation. When I was doing the second master's of mine, having 2 boys, one inside, 2 outside, and finding time to study, it does become quite difficult. And that's where I escaped. My cover up was going to buy bread, and I sat for an hour somewhere in a parking lot just to get that last bit of studying done. I'm definitely not a fan. I was in the past of checking your emails while standing in the grocery store in the queue, because I also believe there should be time for you to think. So we should also be careful of how much we try to fit in at every little spot in our lives. And I've also learned this from many others before me, to just slow down, calm down, and have time to think. And sometimes balance go out the window temporarily, and that's fine. Acknowledge that and just know it will return. Finding that balance between you and your family and your work. And a few years ago, I saw a tweet of somebody who, she said she just heard some awful news, and she was now going to eat some salad and do some yoga. And that was very interesting for me, because I must say, it's quite a profound impression, because we often hear people talk about, I'm going to eat a burger and have a beer, but not yoga and salad. So if we try and keep the balance between everything around us, maybe we should bring in some very healthy coping strategies as well at the same time. And again, do as I say, not as I do. So here's the 7 principles. Create impact, acknowledge those marginal gains, acknowledge your excuses and then chuck them, acknowledge your ecosystem, pay it forward, failure is always learning, and keep the balance, even if you get it right only 50% of the time. Now, Professor Amy Stewart, I would like to just give a special vote of thanks to the person who's going to say the vote of thanks tonight. And I know she will be formally introduced as part of the program soon. She's the catalyst in my academic journey, and therefore the ideal person to give this vote of thanks. I was close to the end of my master's degree in the Wits physiotherapy department in 2007, 2008. When she informed me that there was a position available in the physiotherapy department as lecturer, I declined 3 times on different occasions because nobody from Pretoria voluntarily crosses their hinops on the N1. And the 4th time, when she called me into her office and she said, listen, we need to talk. And she took out the job description and she explained to me what this job entails. I said, yes, let's do this. And I've never looked back. The academic area is definitely where I have to be. And I really can't thank her enough. Even over the years, I just thanked her multiple times to say that I can't believe I'm in this position. This is ideal. And this is really the environment for me. And I would like to thank her in her absence. And I hope she's able to hear us from Benin. I'm not sure what the signal is like, but I do appreciate the fact that she has really gone out of her way to make the recording. And then just from my side, it's the last time that I'll have the podium, not ever, just for tonight. Thank you to everyone here tonight and to the organizing team. Really, it's after hours and here you are, and I'm not the only inaugural lecture, yet you remain friendly and you're just doing your job brilliantly. Thank you very much for that. And Tembi and Rochelle and Anna, the Wits events team, they were just brilliant. You send an email and you ask something and they just come back. I can really see it's an oiled machine organizing. I think they've done this a few times in the past. And then Prof. Maiswa, thank you very much for the lovely introduction. You know me so well since the very first day that I started the Wits. Thank you very much for doing that. And Prof. Yandra, thank you. It's a good opening. I think you lifted the spirits. Thank you for that. And again, to everyone here, there's a few faces that I haven't seen in years, so that is brilliant to have you here. And then online, I can't see you, but I know you are there, and many of you sent me a WhatsApp to say that you're there. Thank you very much for doing that, and it's good to have you there as well. Okay, so on that note, I'm going to close my part of the evening. I'll hand over to the next speaker. Thank you very much.
I think another round of applause is well done, Benita. And thank you for such a wonderful talk, but I'm not going to say any more thank yous, otherwise I'll be in trouble and I will have taken away from Prof. Stewart's duty tonight. So I have the pleasure to introduce Prof. Stewart, who is going to give us the vote of thanks. Prof. Amy Stewart is a retired associate professor in the Department of Physiotherapy in the School of Therapeutic Sciences in our university, University of the Witwatersrand. She was the coordinator of the postgraduate program and the research program until 2012. She has over 130 publications in peer-reviewed journals and has presented at many conferences. She has supervised over 40 masters and 20 PhDs, of which 2 are Benita and I. She was the winner of the South African Department of Science and Technology Distinguished Women in Science Award in the Social Sciences and Humanities category in 2011. She was awarded an Exceptional Service Award from the Africa region of the WCPT for work in Africa in 2012. She was also awarded, or she will be awarded in December, but the award was done earlier, but we just, because of COVID, have not been able to give it to her. But she was awarded a gold medal in 2020 for her services to the physiotherapy department and the university, as well as the profession. In terms of the profession, Prof. Stewart was one of the first African physiotherapists to actually be the scientific chair for the World Congress for Physiotherapy. Her CV is as long as my arm, but most of all, she has been a mother in the department and in the faculty, and has mothered many of us in more ways than our academic journey. Prof. Stewart, most welcome.
Benita's family, friends, Deputy Vice Chancellor, Dean, Head of School and colleagues. This is a recorded tribute because I am in Benin at the World Physiotherapy Africa Congress, at which I am an invited speaker, thus sadly missing being with all of you this evening. I have no doubt that you have all enjoyed Benita's inaugural lecture this evening, yet another accomplishment in her impressive CV. Benita has given us an overview of her important research in the biomechanics and injuries of fast bowlers in cricket. In addition, she has presented life as a young female academic, balancing academia with a young family. As Benita has said, cricket is the 4th biggest game worldwide, and although not a contact sport, still has injuries that need to be carefully managed. Cricket is one of the team games in South Africa that has the capacity to be more than a game for many of our children and young adults at both the school and club level. Like so many sports, cricket gives our children and young adults the opportunity to grow and develop, bringing self-actualization and opportunities to many. We need to nurture games like cricket given this role, and Benita's work is doing just that by providing evidence for the management of the inevitable injuries which the players sustain. Benita has shown in her initial series of studies the importance of the abdominal muscles in both injury and performance. These studies, done in our movement laboratory, illustrate the need for us to combine research in the laboratory and in the field. I do hope that we can maintain and grow our movement laboratory as research in sport-related issues at WITS grows. It is an important resource and should not be neglected, given how much can be learned in these laboratory-based studies, as has been shown in Benita's work. Benita's work, together with her postgraduate students, has established her as a well-known researcher in cricket, both locally and internationally. Her development and hard work in establishing the WITS Cricket Research Hub will further enhance her role in cricket research. Because the research work done in the hub concentrates on school and club level cricketers, the pipeline of players is thus being catered for. We undertake research to increase our knowledge and understanding in different fields. However, it is part of our obligation as researchers to translate our research into practice. Benita continually emphasizes this, and it is one of the aims of the Cricket Hub is to make a difference to the management of our young cricketers. This in time should help to prevent and manage their cricket injuries appropriately. Benita is extraordinarily hardworking and is a fine example of a young, intelligent, and committed researcher. She already has an impressive output of both publications and postgraduate completed supervision to her name. I feel very proud of the fact that I was instrumental in getting Benita to consider both academia and WITS. In her, WITS has an academic who will continue to shine as she develops further. She must be looked after. I am sure that you all wish Benita well as she continues her research journey. Thank you to all of you for attending this lecture, and travel home safely.
Thank you very much, Prof. Stewart, and I have no doubt you are watching all the way from Benin. And on that note, I would like to say thank you for coming. But you know, in true African spirit and culture, we will not let you go home without having a bite to eat. So I'd like to invite you to join us outside for a few eats and something to drink, and to have an opportunity to congratulate Benita. Benita, well done once again. Thank you.